Good morning, everyone out there in StreetEasy land. Thanks for joining us today on the Q2 session of Decoding the Market. You are on air with StreetEasy. My name is Stephanie Schoenholz. I'm the Director of Industry Relations for StreetEasy, and I am hailing to you from lovely Larchmont in Westchester County. I am often in the city, so I'm trying to bring back and help the vibrancy come back to our grand city. And today, as you know, we're going to be hosting the Decoding the Market, where we're going to run through the latest market report from StreetEasy's senior economist, Nancy Wu. We will also do a deep dive about affordable housing. So we've had a spotlight on this for quite a while at StreetEasy, and Nancy produced a great report and blog during Fair Housing Month in April, so we'll do a deep dive of that. We will also be joined throughout today's session by Heather Huff, who is a top producing agent at Bohemia Realty Group. She also happens to be one of the gurus around affordable housing in New York City. She's extremely knowledgeable, so she'll be joining us and providing her deep knowledge set and kind of boots on the ground perspective for everything we're going to go over today. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in. We have taken all of your questions that you submitted during registration, so thank you for that. We will answer as many of them as we can during the Q&A session at the end, so stick around for that. And then at the very end of today's Decoding the Market, there is an extremely brief survey. I promise it won't take you more than a minute or two to complete. We're going to ask you a couple of questions about the session. We want to hear your feedback. Is this information relevant? What else can we be doing to support your business and really kind of bolster it and bring it back to pre-pandemic business levels? So let us know all that. And as a token of our appreciation for filling out that survey and watching the entirety of today's session, we will give you a gift. You can choose what that gift is, a physical gift or a donation to one of the many charities that you'll have an option to select. So without further ado, I would like to welcome StreetEasy's economist, Nancy Wu. You know her well from not only these Decoding the Market sessions, but from all of the fabulous research that she produces on the housing market in New York City. Everything from affordable housing to rent versus buy and how recessions are impacting rents and pricing in our grand city. So I'd also like to welcome Heather from Bohemia Realty Group to join us now as well. And we will dig into this market report. So Nancy, where are you coming to us from today?
Thanks, Stephanie, and thank you everyone for attending. I'm currently in Mexico City right now, but I will be in New York City after this. And I currently live in the New York City housing data day in and day out, always looking at the research. And I'm here to share with you the latest numbers from our Q1 market report to help you make sense of the market with the latest numbers. A few trends have changed since April and May, and I'll talk about that as well. And we're also going to have a discussion in the second half of the presentation on our research on the impact of COVID on voucher holders. It's a really important and timely discussion right now. I'm really excited to be here with Heather to talk about that and to get Heather's on the ground perspective about the market trends.
All right, thanks, Nancy. So Heather, would love to know where you're coming to us from these days, and then we'll dive into Nancy's report.
Hi, I'm so thankful to be here. I am actually in New York City. I've been here the whole time. Believe it or not, I'm at my office. So I'm glad to be on board with you guys here today from NYC.
All right, without further ado, Nancy, take it away.
All right, so let's start with the sales market overview. Now, the best way to look at this data is through my colorful charts. And if you've been to one of these events in the past, and you've definitely seen these and may be familiar with them, but I'll let you know the most important takeaways from these charts. So this is our latest data released in Q1 market reports. We're looking right now at the StreetEasy rent and price index over time, their year-over-year changes. So this is how rents and prices are growing or falling over time. Now, StreetEasy has their own way of tracing prices and rents on the market. We control for neighborhood, for the number of bedrooms, the composition of homes on the market, so that we can look at price changes over time in a way that is more accurate than medians. So to get a sense of what's happening on the market since the pandemic, we're comparing sales to rentals here. This sharp blue drop that's dropping, this dramatic blue line, that's StreetEasy's rent index. And you can see that it's dropped much farther since the pandemic by over 16% across the city. In contrast, the sales market has been trending down even before the pandemic started. That orange line is going up and then going down. That sales market slowdown of prices has been happening for the past 3 years now, and the pandemic has exacerbated that slowdown. So this shows us that the rentals market is quicker to react to economic downturns than the sales market, and while the sales market slowdown is more gradual. So now we'll turn to the factors that are influencing the sales market and the rentals market. So let's take that orange line that we just saw of sales and break it down by boroughs. So now we're looking at year over year changes in prices in Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and New York City overall. So the pandemic has exacerbated the sales market slowdown that has been ongoing. We see that Manhattan prices have fallen by 5% year over year for the past 3 years. Brooklyn prices have fallen by about 2% in the past, and then starting in 2021, Brooklyn prices dropped by 5% year over year, and it's been dropping rapidly. Queens prices, meanwhile, are remaining fairly stable compared to the other two boroughs here. So these numbers are really reflecting the supply on the market. We're going to dive into that next. But a lot of people are looking to sell right now. There's a lot of inventory on the market. High supply means lower prices when there isn't adequate demand. And a lot of interested buyers are coming onto the market, but that has still not been as, a lot of interested buyers have been coming onto the market, but it hasn't been as much as the inventory that we are seeing. So pending sales are a very good indicator of the way that the sales market is trending. And this shows us that buyer activity has been rising in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, and Queens since this year. So we're now a year into the pandemic, over a year into the pandemic. And for many buyers, it's been a year of window shopping in 2020, looking at the 3D tours online and just waiting for the right time to make a move. But now that prices are coming down and there's an abundance of homes for sale, lots of choices, and the vaccine rollout is picking up speed, plus mortgage rates are still very low, a lot of New York City buyers are deciding that now is the time to make an offer. And that's why in the data, we're seeing pending sales shoot up. I'm curious, Heather, on the ground, are you also seeing much more buyer interest in 2021 compared to 2020?
The properties that we've seen on the market, they've been sitting and all of a sudden we go and there are 4 other offers on there. So things are moving much quicker. They were sitting a lot longer in 2020 and they are moving much faster in 2021.
That's super interesting. I love it when the on-the-ground perspective does match what the data is showing, just because I look at numbers all day, but like I haven't rented or bought in a long time. Well, I've never bought, but I haven't rented in a long time. So always curious to hear about how the market is doing. So turning over to inventory, we know that buyers are making moves. A lot of buyers are coming onto the market now, but that being said, inventory is still extremely high. We hear in the news all the time that buyers are returning to the market and there's a buying rampage and inventory shortage across the country, but that's actually not the case in New York City. So New York City buyers are coming onto the market, but whereas there's a shortage of inventory across the country, there's actually been a surplus of inventory in New York City for the past 3 years, going back to that sales market slowdown that's been ongoing. So New York City buyers, for the most part, are still in the driver's seat. And that means a lot of buyers have choices and negotiating power. So I'm curious, from all the inventory that is on the market, Heather, have you seen a lot of sellers listing their inventory lately? And what kind of sellers are they? Are they trying to move out of the city? Are they in a rush to sell? Or are they just like waiting for the right price? I'm curious what's happening.
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of the sellers that I'm seeing are sometimes moving out of the city. Sometimes they're upgrading. A lot of these people have maybe been working from home and they've realized maybe their space is just not as big as they wanted it to be. So some of them are upgrading, getting bigger places in the city, or we also are seeing some people still kind of making a little bit of that migration out to the suburbs.
That's really interesting. I get this question all the time in Zillow work and StreetEasy work about the suburbs and where people are moving. So there are a lot of sellers that are moving as a result of remote work and pandemic related changes. But the next trend that we're going to see shows us a little bit of seasonality that's been happening in the market. StreetEasy also traces median days on market, and this is how long a home spends on the market between being listed and then going into contract. And in fact, whereas homes nationally are flying off the market in just a week on average, homes in New York City are taking a bit longer, keeping in mind that this is Q1 data. So since April and May, we have seen homes flying off the market quicker, but it's still a good amount of time, and it's still higher than it was last year in terms of how long a home stays on the market. Homes still staying on the market longer than they did in 2019, which was the last normal year that we had to compare our data with. So keep in mind that this is very seasonal. We saw this trend of homes staying lingering on the market go up in the midst of the pandemic, and then homes were flying off the market in the fall when things were reopening. Then homes spent longer again during the winter shutdown. And now we are seeing that homes are coming off the market faster again. And we're heading into a really busy summer shopping season. So definitely am looking forward to seeing how much these trends change then. Next metric that StreetEasy traces are price cuts. And price cuts are when a listing on StreetEasy receives a price drop. So people who start a listing can be notified when there's a price change on that listing. And 1 in 5 homes we saw were discounted in 2021, which is a good amount, but years past, we've seen that number be a lot higher. So it turns out that this is happening, or my hypothesis is that sellers are pricing lower from the get-go. That's what we're seeing in prices dropping in Manhattan and Brooklyn. And as a result, there are fewer price cuts because sellers are pricing lower from the get-go. So, but I'm curious that we're seeing this from the data, but what are you seeing on the ground? Heather, are you seeing more discounts? Are you seeing just lower prices than before?
I agree. I mean, it's a little bit of both. I am seeing things more reasonably priced. The agents are doing a great job of advising a lot of the sellers about how to appropriately price their properties in this type of market. So there is definitely still some wiggle room in the price for buyers, but we are seeing them priced appropriately, and therefore we don't have to have so much of that back and forth that sometimes you do to get to that sweet spot in the price.
That's really interesting because looking at these trends, I've been waiting for lower prices and more accurate prices that reflect the demand on the market for a long time. And it looks like the pandemic has finally spurred some of that. All right, so those are our sales market trends. And now we'll talk about the rentals market, which was a bit crazy as you saw from that really dramatic blue line. And now we're going to divide that blue line and break it down by New York City overall, as well as Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. So turning to the rentals market breakdown by borough, we're seeing price drops year over year here. Rents are continuing to fall across the city. Rents fell by over 16% in Manhattan and over 10% in Brooklyn and Queens, which is even more than how much rents fell during the recession, which is insane rent drops. This opens up a lot of space, though, for people who want to live in Manhattan, who were priced out recently or in the past 10 years to move back, because Manhattan rents are now beyond even lower than 2010 levels. So that's a really good opportunity for a lot of people to move to new places. And as of April and May, so this is Q1 data again, but as of April and May, we are seeing that the rent drops have flattened out a bit. So not every month, before every month I opened up my market report data and saw that it was another dramatic 2 or 3% drop, but now it's been fairly flat. We're seeing that the rate that rents are falling is flattening out. And so that is a sign that lots of buyers are returning to the market. So inventory reached record highs during the pandemic, but now we're starting to see inventories come off the market gradually throughout 2021. This drop has been continuing in April and May as well. So more people are moving back to the city and taking up all those great deals that they've seen on the rentals market. But it's going to take a lot longer for rents to recover. I always get this question about when will rents go back to pre-pandemic levels? And I expect that it will take a while before they return to as high as they were before the pandemic, just because inventory now is still twice as high, more than twice as high as it was a year ago. Even though it is coming off the market, it's still more than a 100% growth. So we are seeing that inventory is still very high. Rents are flattening out a bit, but it's going to take a while for people to move back to the city to take up all that excess inventory before rents can recover again. So Heather, are you seeing more renters come back onto the market lately? Has there been just more people returning to the city?
100%. I mean, we have a lot of positive things going for us, right? We have the vaccine. School is starting back up in person in the fall. There are still a lot of great deals out there. I've had clients who weren't planning on moving, saying, hey, I'm going to upgrade my 1-bedroom. I'm going to get a 2-bedroom for a similar price that I'm paying. So it's really exciting to see all the pulse of the city to come back. And you can definitely see it in the rental market as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited for everyone to move back to the city so I can move back as well, because right now everyone I know is still elsewhere. But I do want to go back to the city before these concessions run out, because high inventory right now means that there's been record high concessions. And we're seeing that 44% of apartments in Manhattan are giving a concession. That's anywhere from at least 1 month of free rent to I've still seen 4 or 5 months of free rent on the market, though those are kind of disappearing a bit now as rents are flattening. So concessions are a really great way for landlords to give the gross rent instead of the net effective rent, so that they can change that terms of the lease back to the gross rent if we're in a stronger market by the time that lease is over in a year or two from now. And we're also seeing that fewer landlords are giving discounts and opting for concessions instead. So still a very strong rentals market for renters, and a lot of deals happening right now. So that's all I have for the market data section. Heather, was there anything else that you wanted to add regarding the market trends that we just looked at?
I love to see all of your charts because we're living it on the ground. So it's really cool to see all of that. I would say if you are planning on moving, do it now. Take advantage of all of those great rental concessions, because they're not going to be around for forever, but it's a great way to maybe change your location a little bit, to get a better deal, to get a bigger apartment while all those deals are still around.
So with that being said, let's turn to our fair housing discussion on affordability and housing vouchers. So we just published a piece about the impacts of COVID rent drops on the amount of homes that are affordable to voucher holders. And we saw that record high rent drops and inventory coming onto the market that we mentioned in the market section, those trends have more than doubled the number of homes on the market that are affordable for Section 8 housing choice voucher participants. So in the second half of 2020, we saw that over 40,000 more units were on the market, were affordable compared to the same time in 2019. So this means there's a much wider range of choices for voucher apartments in New York City, and rent drops in some of the city's most expensive areas means that vouchers have new and improved purchasing power within the market. However, of course, there are some issues with that. The areas that have the largest rent drops, we know, are in Manhattan, and those are not necessarily the places where voucher affordable housing participants actually. So we saw that the areas that have the largest uptick in voucher affordable housing does not actually match where most holders actually live, as shown in these maps. So this is in large part because we know that rents dropped by over 16% year over year in Manhattan and in some of the pricier waterfront parts of Brooklyn, but rents didn't drop as much elsewhere. So Bronx has the highest voucher use, but Manhattan has the lowest. But Manhattan is the borough that gained the most voucher affordable housing. So on the one hand, this does open up opportunities in new neighborhoods that are now affordable to voucher holders. Research from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities has found that low-income families using federal housing vouchers are typically concentrated in higher poverty, racially segregated, and low opportunity neighborhoods. So with transparent information on voucher affordable housing, renters can take advantage of a wider range of locations, and this could help offset some disparities of where voucher holders currently live. But of course, affordability and options is not the only barrier. Another barrier is still the unlawful rejections of vouchers as payments by landlords and agents, as well as just there not being enough vouchers. So the fact that housing vouchers are not widely available and that the locations are not everywhere, it's not the only barrier. There's also, housing vouchers also aren't valued competitively in the market for all voucher programs. So payment standards are still very low when compared to the market rate rents in New York City. City FEPS is a voucher program that houses the previously unhomed, and City FEPS payment standards are even lower than Section 8's. So raising payment standards for City FEPS even to Section 8 levels would increase the number of available units from only fewer than 600 to 72,000 units that are available. And also there are 0 neighborhoods affordable to the median family of 4 under City FEPS for a 2-bedroom market rate apartment. But raising the payment standards for City FEPS would actually increase that availability for the same family in 37 neighborhoods. So there'd be a lot more choices. This research that we've done has actually helped support Councilmember Levin to pass a bill to raise the City FEPS payment standards. And that bill has been passed by the council with some amendments, and we're waiting for the mayor to sign or veto, and that's still to be seen. But it is something that some of the StreetEasy numbers has been able to help impact. So more options on the market means that a higher chance for voucher holders to find housing. And current payment standards are determined using the fair market rent, which is the 40th percentile of homes across the New York City metro area. But the metro area also includes lower priced homes in the Hudson Valley, in Long Island, and New Jersey. So raising the payment standards to the 40th percentile of rents in New York City itself, rather than the wider metropolitan area, would actually bring a lot more units to New Yorkers. So it would bring 18,548 more units to Section 8 voucher holders and almost 90,000 more units to City FEPS holders. Of course, one caveat here that's really important to mention is that raising payment standards requires more funding. And there's an important trade-off to consider, because increasing the value of a voucher without increasing the agency funding may lead to unintended consequences of housing fewer people. So for us to get around that, further funding may be required in order to allow more New York City voucher apartments to be competitive in the marketplace. And so the reality is, no matter how many New York City voucher apartments are technically affordable to holders, the likelihood of a voucher holder actually getting a unit is diminished because of discrimination. And so that is an important topic that I am looking forward to discussing more. So all of that data that we just shared, you can actually find on our blog on the StreetEasy data dashboard. The link is right here. It gives you the opportunity to personalize your data. You can select by any neighborhood, any submarket, co-ops or condos, rentals or sales, and then customize it based on the factors that are important to you to look at trends and be informed on all of our upstate market trends that are on the market. Also, be sure to visit our blog, which is here as well. And feel free to follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn if you want to discuss or stay in touch about any updated housing research, or if you have any questions. I'm also on StreetEasy's TikTok sharing tips about renting, buying, selling, and all of the above. So looking forward to the rest of the discussion.
Absolutely. Definitely check out StreetEasy's social media presence. Nancy's been awesome on our ever-growing TikTok account. There's so many people that come onto that, and I personally love the 5-10 second walkthroughs of these apartments that we're hosting on there. So take a look at that. both of you, you've provided, Heather and Nancy, a great amount of information on affordable housing, specifically around the use of housing vouchers. I personally had a huge education in the last couple of months since we started producing this new data, and talking to both of you over the last couple of weeks has provided me with an additional wealth of information. So I'd like to dig in for a little bit more detail, if we could, for the agent audience. And I would like to know a little bit of background on the origin of housing vouchers and their use in New York City. So Heather, if you could give us a little bit of a rundown there, and Nancy, I'm sure you can provide some data as well.
Sure. I mean, there's been a need for affordable housing in New York City since people started coming here. If we talk about in the 1930s, we saw the formation of the New York City Housing Association, which is known as NYCHA. They've helped provide publicly funded houses for New Yorkers who are housing unstable. So from that time, there have been a variety of other agencies that have stepped in to also help the underserved communities. NYCHA actually administers the largest Section 8 program in the country. I'm going to quote the numbers. It's approximately 85,000 Section 8 vouchers and over 25,000 owners who currently participate in the program. That's huge. The Department of Housing Preservation and Development, also known as HPD, serves over 39,000 households in all 5 boroughs, and over 9,000 landlords currently participate in HPD's Section 8 programs. And that's just Section 8. So there are a lot of other programs out there, and there's always been a need for housing programs, especially in New York City, which is an expensive place to live. And we're only seeing it more and more as more people come to live here as well. And every year, as we know, prices keep escalating in New York City.
Great, thank you for that. I know that knowing the background and the origin of these programs is just great information for the agents and for me to have as well. So in terms of resources that not only consumers can utilize, but our agent audience, you know, where can people learn about housing vouchers, who's eligible, how to apply, how to use them when looking for a new home in New York City? Would love to know a little bit more detail there from you, Heather.
There are a variety of different types of housing programs in New York City, and a lot of it depends on one's personal circumstances. Now, some of them do have wait lists that have been closed off, but there are still some that are available to people. Sometimes it depends on, again, your circumstances. If you have a certain health issue, if you're homeless or facing homelessness, if you have low or no income, also depending on your family size, you could be considered for one of these housing programs. For New Yorkers, I would specifically refer them to something like the New York City Human Resources Administration, DSS, Department of Social Services. They have a lot of information that you can check out. And as real estate agents and property managers, we are actually usually interacting with people who already have their vouchers. So we see them kind of on the tail end of it. But it's also, we get a lot of questions about, I have a friend, how can they also be eligible? So there are a variety of different types of ways to be eligible for the program. And you can find a lot of that great information online too.
Great, thank you so much for that. Okay, so for this next piece, I'm going to reiterate some information that Nancy just went over. If you bear with me for just a minute, there is quite a bit of detail in this next bit, but I think it's going to be really useful to get that boots on the ground perspective for the agents on the Decoding the Market today. So Nancy just mentioned that the StreetEasy market data that we produced in April showed that there were 0 neighborhoods currently where the median asking rent for a market rate 2-bedroom could actually house a family of 4 under the current City FEP's payment standards. And she mentioned that if we raised the City FEP's payment threshold to what Section 8 standards are today, which is quite a significant increase, that opens up availability for the same family of 4 in 37 additional neighborhoods. So, you know, Heather, what is the boots on the ground perspective? How is that going to, frankly, change a lot of people's lives, because it's really opening up quite a bit more availability for them?
It's huge in one kind of short item. I mean, if we talk about City FEPs, I mean, their payments are a little bit lower. They do also have incentives for landlords and brokers, why Section 8 does not. So sometimes we see a little bit of that disparity in some of the resources for those clients because of what other things that they offer. But raising the City FEP's payment standard will be huge for these clients. A lot of them are facing homelessness, are in shelters. A lot of them are families. So it would make an amazing difference to just have much more accessibility and options of where they can able to live too.
I mean, that's really encouraging for me to hear all of Nancy's data about, the rise of searching and renting and buying in the city. It's all kind of a silver lining to what has been a very tumultuous year and change for all of us New Yorkers. So, hopefully that comes to fruition. Next bit here, I would like to know, we've got a couple of these questions that came in through Q&A, but I was also actually very curious myself. If you had to put out there, what's a good rule of thumb for consumers when they're searching for homes using housing vouchers? Is there a one-stop shop, outside of a Zillow group site like StreetEasy? What are the other helpful resources that consumers can use to find housing voucher specific homes? Heather or Nancy, either of you, like to hear from you.
I'll pop on for that. A good rule of thumb is if the gross rent is within your budget, you can inquire about it. It could be eligible for you. There are some programs like Section 8 or CityFX that also might have additional requirements. For example, a designated room for sleeping for CityFX and Section 8 has to be 80 square feet. A lot of people don't know that. So there are definitely size requirements as well. A program like CityFX that you had mentioned earlier is actually dependent on the number of people in their family unit and does not specify number of bedrooms. So because the prices are what they are right now, unfortunately, sometimes CityFX clients have to find a one bedroom that has an 80 square feet living room, an 80 square feet bedroom, and use both of those items as sleeping areas. Again, when those prices get raised, fingers crossed, then they'll definitely be, of course, getting them to their proper two bedroom that they'd like to have. But the important point for working within their budget now is to make sure we find them permanent housing and get them out of their unstable situation and hopefully give them better lives.
Okay, great. That's really, really great. All right, last bit for our kind of pseudo fireside chat here around housing affordability. Heather, this one I'm going to direct to you since you're really kind of boots on the ground in and out of this real life circumstances every day. What are some of the biggest hurdles that housing voucher users face when they're out in the marketplace searching and applying for units using their housing voucher?
Oh gosh, how much time do we have? Lawful source of income is now a protected class under the New York City Human Rights Law. It includes any federal, state, or local housing assistance towards the payment of one's rent. So unfortunately, there are some real estate agents, there are some property managers, there are some landlords who may not be following proper fair housing laws. Or, they might be ignorant of them. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And these applicants can find themselves facing source of income discrimination. Or maybe they're finding apartments that fit into the program's criteria, but maybe there's a lot of red tape around the program, and the program takes a long time, and then and then the apartment's not available. So there's a lot of different things that come into play. Our goal is to try to have them find the best homes for them, to kind of cut through a lot of that red tape to find them permanent housing, and then work through a little bit of that red tape for the program too. So if we can find all of that combination, then we can find someone a permanent place to live, which is the end goal for everyone.
Yeah, we agree with that. Housing for all. I know we are big supporters of that at StreetEasy. All right, so that wraps up the main portion of our Decoding the Market. So we've gone through obviously Nancy's market report and our affordable housing section. Now we are going to dive into the Q&A. We received a ton of really great questions from the agent audience. We're really excited to dig into those. And so I am going to kick it off with the first question. Heather, it'll be for you. So what are some reasons to work with voucher holders that agents may not be aware of? What are some of the real benefits to that?
Well, first of all, it's the law, at least in New York City. So non-compliance could cost an agent their license. They could face really steep monetary penalties. And I mean, also some of these applicants are young people that have been kicked out of their homes. They've been families. There have been seniors that have just fallen on hard times. So it's really just the right thing to do. You can be a superhero agent, of course, still making money, but really helping the people who need it most. I mean, of course, there's also programs that pay a broker fee. Not many people know that. I was mentioning City FEPs. Some of these programs, if a client is in a shelter, they will pay a 15% broker fee, 15%, and especially in a season of OPs that we've been having in New York City, that's music to our ears. So some of them do pay a 15% broker fee if a client is in a shelter, and also offer great landlords incentives. City FEPs offers, for example, in general, a $4,300 lease signing bonus to participating landlords. So those are a lot of really awesome benefits. I mean, besides doing the right thing and being compliant with the law, that you can feel good about at the end of the day.
That's awesome news. So good to know. All right. For our second question here, I would love to hear from both Nancy and Heather, if we could. What does the surge in rental apartments affordable to voucher holders mean for agents? So is this actually a good thing for voucher holders? Heather, we'll start with you, and then Nancy, we can pick up with you after.
I mean, a surge in affordable housing for all really means that real estate agents have to be informed. They have to educate themselves. I mean, I've spoken with a lot of agents recently that have reached out because I know a bit of information about this topic, that have never received inquiries from people who have housing programs, and they just don't know what to do. I mean, as real estate agents, we really need to focus on helping all clients, no matter what their situation is. So educating yourselves is a really important thing to do. Also, again, just finding the client's next home to be, as we had mentioned, helping them navigate that path is something that you can expect. And again, getting more of those affordable housing calls to just know how to work through them.
And Nancy, what's your take on that?
So of course, more options and the surge in rental apartments that are affordable is going to be good in terms of more choices. But like we saw, that surge is mainly in the more expensive areas of the city, in Manhattan, where most voucher holders don't currently live. And so that's a great opportunity to move to a different neighborhood, to be in a different school district, closer to work. But source of income discrimination is still going to be a barrier. And also keep in mind that a lot of the affordable homes in Manhattan now are studios, which would not be realistic for a family of four using a voucher. So the increase of affordable housing across the city is definitely good, but it's not enough.
It's a complicated issue, as we're seeing. All right, next up, we get this question, I feel like every quarter. It's an extremely pertinent question. The answer is one that I know the agents are really excited to hear from Nancy. So this one's going to be for you. What is your prediction on how long it will take for Manhattan to recover and become a seller's market again?
I love this question. Do get it all the time. I think it will take a while for Manhattan's economy to recover, for Manhattan to become a seller market. So part of the reason why the slowdown has been ongoing for the past 3 years, and it's been most severe in Manhattan, is because the economy was so good in 2014, 2015 that new condos were just flying off the market, prices were really high, and a lot of developers built new buildings during that time. But unfortunately, prices were so high that the new buildings, the new condos built during the height of 2014 and 2015 are lingering on the market. So 1 in 4 condos built in 2014 to 2015 still remain unsold. That is a problem for COVID as well, because foreign demand was a large source of that consumption, and foreign demand has definitely decreased due to travel restrictions during COVID. So there's been a lot of factors and just affordability issues with homes being too highly priced. So until these developers and sellers start pricing these condos properly, and in Manhattan, until prices become reasonable overall, that will be when demand comes back and when we can reverse this downward trend of prices into an upward trend of prices again. So it's all about supply and demand. And right now, supply is very high. Demand is high too, but not as high as supply is. So that will take a while for these factors to change.
Understood. Thanks for that. All right, we're going to jump back into an affordable housing question again here. So this one will be directed to Heather. How best can agents assist someone who has a housing program and they're looking to utilize their voucher within that program?
That's a great question, especially, again, as some agents may not have gotten a lot of these calls before. So if a potential applicant asks if the agent or the landlord accepts housing programs or housing vouchers, the answer should always be all lawful sources of income are considered, and which include housing programs. And then I would suggest to ask the client what housing program that they have. Again, you can learn a little bit more about the programs. If you don't know the answer right away, you can let them know, hey, I'm going to I'm going to learn a little bit more about the program. I'm going to get back to you. But that way you can see if that apartment that they're inquiring for is actually, going to fit with what their program requirements are. And then see how you can best assist them from there. Some applicants might have caseworkers. Again, you can look online to learn a little bit more about these programs. Or my agency, Bohemia Realty Group, also offers comprehensive workshops and consulting services to better understand the working with different housing programs. But I think the true essence of it is really just asking questions and learning about this client situation to see how best you can assist them.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. This next question, I'm going to field it. It's what are the best resources to make sure we have a successful transaction working with voucher holders? Is there a guide to the entire process and timing expectations? So StreetEasy is currently working with the city. We do often work with outside entities and third parties to make sure that not only are we educated internally, and that's obviously informing our programs and things of that nature, but that we are also able to disseminate that information to our audience, be that consumers, brokers, agents, developers, landlords. And so we're currently working with the city to put together resources for agents, something around Section 8 housing, housing choice vouchers specifically. And of course, we always have access to our blog at StreetEasy, which is accessible to both consumers and our agent audience. And you can always go there and look at Nancy's additional research that she has, the different articles that she produces there. And that should be a really good resource for you as well. In addition, at the end of this session, you're going to see a screen that's going to show up. It has all of Heather's additional information about the consultancy services that Bohemia Realty Group produces and continuing ed classes that she's also involved in. So we absolutely encourage you all to educate yourselves about these programs and how to help clients navigate those waters and get into a home that's right for them. All right, next question. We're almost through our Q&A here. What resources do brokers and salespeople have to stay up to date on changes to rental laws? Really know that's quite important. And trying to hunt down answers and questions independently has proven to be very challenging, and general websites do not necessarily contain specifics. So that was obviously a question from the agent audience. Heather, I'll let you take that one.
The ever-changing policies. So I am a member of the Real Estate Board of New York, and they have, for me personally, wonderful resources. They send out newsletters and updates as they pertain to different policies in our industry, and I find those extremely helpful. So if not to plug them, but if you're not a member, they provide amazing resources. And you can also subscribe to publications like The Real Deal or other industry resources out there to make sure you're staying up. It's important that you are on top of your game, that you know the changing policy, and that's the best way to help your clients.
Okay, plethora of resources out there. Just have to get access to all of them. All right. Last question. Thank you all for staying tuned thus far. So last Q&A here. Nancy, I'm going to throw this one to you. Another kind of prediction question here. What is the future of the rental marketplace in the next 12 to 36 months? So please get out your crystal ball. I'd like to know what the next year to 3 years of the rental marketplace looks like in New York City. Hopefully you're moving back sometime soon so we can get you into our great city and adding back to all the cultural and vibrancy that we've got going on here. So what do you think?
Well, Stephanie, every economist has a crystal ball, so I'm going to look into mine, and I have some pretty specific predictions for the next 12, 24, and 36 months. But of course, these are predictions, but I predict that in the next 12 months, we're going to see rents still far below pre-pandemic levels. More renters will have moved back to the city, but like we said, inventory is more than twice as high as it was before the pandemic. So not everyone is moving back immediately. We are going to see a very gradual change in rents to go back to prior levels. In 24 months, I expect that the city is going to be up and booming again. It's going to look very different and possibly better than it was before. We're going to see Manhattan become home to more renters making a diverse range of incomes. Good Deals right now has been drawing a lot of renters into Manhattan for these lower priced apartments. And the empty storefronts closed during COVID could transform into shops and restaurants that are catering to a diverse range of incomes as well. So that means fewer cocktails that cost $25 for everyone, which would be great. Demand is going to be spread out across the city. We're going to see people living where they want to live rather than just close to their offices due to remote work being permanent. And in 36 months, I think the city is going to be as busy as ever. New York City always recovers. We saw that during the Great Recession. It took about 2 years for rents to become really high again and for everyone to be moving back. We're going to see the rentals market in New York City as busy as ever in 36 months.
Great to hear. Can't wait for you to move back. I'm looking forward to my overpriced drink with colleagues and friends in person. I've already started doing that, so really exciting. All right, so it looks like we are at time. We've gone over a good deal of information here today. We hope that you have all found it extremely useful. Like I said, we're looking forward to hearing your feedback. And just as a kind of quick recap of where you can find more information, what you're looking at up on your screen right now are the additional affordable housing resources that Heather has alerted us to. You can obviously also capture a lot of information on the StreetEasy blog and through Nancy's additional research. I highly suggest you take a quick screen grab of what you see on the screen or a quick picture on your phone so that you have that information accessible. We will be sending out a version of this recording after today for all of you who have attended. So if you're not able to grab that screen grab, you can get it on the recording that we'll send you out shortly. And just as a brief reminder, there's going to be a very, very quick survey. I promise it won't take you more than a minute or two at the end of this session. Fill it out. We want to hear from you. Did you find this useful? What other information would you find useful for us to highlight during these Decoding the Market sessions, which we do produce every quarter? If you fill out the survey, we'll send you a little token of our appreciation. You get to choose what that is or donate to a worthy cause. It's your choice. We really appreciate you joining us here today. A huge thank you to Nancy Wu, StreetEasy Senior Economist. As always, your information and the data you produce is always useful. And thank you to Heather Huff from Bohemia Realty Group, who has also joined us today and provided her valuable knowledge and boots on the ground experience. So with that said, that is the end of our Q2 Decoding the Market. Thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye, everyone.